I wanted to be able to play an intro or breakdown with no drums but still keep time. My current solution is a simple switch that turns on a hi-hat sample to keep time when the drum beat isn't playing. There's more than one way to do this, but this is the setup I've been testing out lately. This setup has three different parts: a hi-hat sample with a MIDI clip, a dial to toggle between the hi-hat sample and the drums, and a dial or two buttons to trigger Pop Drummer fills. You can set this up with Pop Drummer as an audio unit, or with Pop Drummer running through a separate drum machine. I personally run Pop Drummer through DigiStix. Either way, the first 5 steps are exactly the same. Create a new page for the hi-hat sample and MIDI clip. I put these on a new page to save space because they'll be controlled by another widget on the main page. For this example, I'm creating the widgets on page B. Create a MIDI clip in a new color group. Then draw in 4 C4 MIDI notes. You can long press the note to change the velocity. This is handy if you want to accent a beat. Create an audio clip in the same color group and upload your sample. You can choose any sound to help you keep time, but I've chosen a hi-hat sample. Add a destination for the MIDI color group you've just created. Select Play Audio Clip and choose the clip you've just uploaded your sample to. Make sure that there are no other channels using the new color group as a destination. Test that the MIDI and audio clips are working. Do this by muting Pop Drummer or your drum sampler. Activate the MIDI clip. Tap a tempo and press play. You can go to the mixer and adjust the volume if needed. Create a slider widget. Add a value change action and select Adjust Parameter. Then target the clip with the sample you've uploaded. I also create a double tap action that returns the volume to a default level. This is useful if you have a certain volume you generally like. You can turn it up or down, then return it to the normal volume with a double tap. Use this to change the volume of the sample. If you're using Pop Drummer on its own as an audio unit, I find the transitions are smoother when you mute and unmute it through a bus send, rather than muting and unmuting Pop Drummer itself. You can skip this step if you're using Pop Drummer through a drum sampler. Create a bus send. I've named it PD send. Deselect all destinations on your Pop Drummer channel and then add the bus send and turn it all the way up. We're going to recreate this dial that will switch between the hi-hat sample and the drums. Create a new dial and add a select action to play stop a clip. Target the MIDI clip that triggers the hats and make sure the action is set to stop. Create another select action. If you're running Pop Drummer as an audio unit, select Mute Unmute Bus, then target the PD Send bus you've just created. Change the action to Unmute. If you're running Pop Drummer through another drum machine, select Mute Unmute Audio Source and choose the drum sampler you're using. Change the action to Unmute. Name this item Hats Off or whatever makes sense to you. In this position, your loop will start like normal, with the drum straight in and the hat sample off. Press and hold to copy the two actions and paste it to the second item. Note, you only need one mute action, whichever applies to your setup. I'm copying both mute actions in this video for demonstration only. Change the first action to play. and the second action to mute. Rename this hats on or whatever makes sense to you. This position will mute the drums and unmute the hats to keep time. Add a press action to scroll the dial. This means when you press the dial, it will change between the two options. When the dial is in the off position, your drum sampler or bus send should be unmuted. The MIDI clip on page B should be deactivated. When the dial is in the on position, your drum sampler or bus send should be muted, and the MIDI clip should be activated to play. This dot shows that the MIDI clip on that page is active. Next, we need to create two sets of actions. The first is to trigger the fill feature in Pop Drummer. This feature simply plays a drum fill and continues the groove. The second is to trigger the fill in or out feature in Pop Drummer. This starts or stops the groove with a fill. For example, if the drum groove is stopped, it will play a fill and continue the groove, and vice versa. You can create these as either separate buttons or as a dial. If you have limited foot switches, I would recommend a dial. Otherwise, buttons would be a better option. If you prefer the dial option, skip to the next section. Create a new widget. Add a press action to send a MIDI message. Target Pop Drummer. I'm running 2 instances of Pop Drummer for this demo only. Select Note and tap away from the pop-up message. Use channel 10 and send the note 48 or C3. This makes Pop Drummer play a fill and continue playing. Create a press action and choose Mute Unmute Bus if you're using Pop Drummer as an audio unit, or choose Mute Unmute Audio Source if you're using it with a drum sampler. If you're using Pop Drummer as an audio unit, target the PD send bus. Change the action to unmute. If you're using a drum sampler, target the drum sampler you're using. Change the action to unmute. Create another action to play stop a clip. Target the MIDI clip that's controlling the hats. And change the action to stop. Rename this widget Fill. When you're playing an intro with the hats only, this button will unmute the drums and trigger a fill. You can also use it to trigger a fill when the drums are already playing. The next step is to create a widget that toggles the Pop Drummer fill in and out feature. This is for breakdowns, bridges, or outros. When you press this button, the drums that are playing will do a fill and then stop. The hi-hat sample will be activated to keep time. You can then press the same button to make Pop Drummer play a fill back into a groove. The hats will mute as the drums return. Copy and paste the button you've just created. Rename this button in a way that makes sense to you. Reselect Pop Drummer as your target destination. Change the MIDI note to note 57 or A3. This toggles the Pop Drummer fill in and out feature. Change the stop clip action to toggle. Setting up a dial instead of individual buttons lets you switch between and activate the two sets of actions with the one foot switch. The actions operate exactly the same as the buttons do, but they're just set up slightly differently. Create a dial and change the settings to activation trigger and disable state feedback. Add a select action to send a MIDI message. Target Pop Drummer. Select Note and tap away from the pop-up message. Use channel 10 and send the note 48 or C3. This makes Pop Drummer play a fill and continue playing. Add a select action and choose Mute Unmute Bus if you're using Pop Drummer as an audio unit, or Mute Unmute Audio Source if you're using it through a drum sampler. If you're using it as an audio unit, target the PD bus send. Change the action to unmute. If you're using a drum sampler, target the drum sampler you're using. Change the action to unmute. Note that I have two unmute actions for this demonstration only. You only need one unmute action that matches your setup. Add a final select action to play stop a clip. Target the MIDI clip that is controlling the hats and change the action to stop. Rename this item Fill. When you're playing an intro with the hats only, this set of actions will unmute the drums and trigger a fill into a groove. It can also trigger a fill when the drums are already playing. Copy the three actions from the first item, then paste it to the second item. Target Pop Drummer. Change the MIDI note to send note 57 or A3. This toggles Pop Drummer's fill in and out feature. Change the stop clip action to toggle. Rename this item to whatever makes sense to you. Add a press action and select Trigger Widget. Target the dial you're currently on. Change the action to scroll. Turn on Wraparound and select Activation Trigger. This allows you to press the dial to switch between the two items without activating the actions until you press your foot switch. This dial is triggered by a foot switch, but I have a backup button to trigger it in case your foot switch isn't working for whatever reason. Create a new button and create a new press action. Choose Trigger Widget and target the dial you've just created. Change the action to activate current value / retrigger. Now the buttons are set, it's time to assign them to your foot controller. Select the menu button at the top right of the screen and choose MIDI Learn. Tap on the Fill button and press the foot switch you want to use. The MIDI message sent from your foot switch will show here. Then repeat this process with the Fill In and Out button. Make sure you use a different MIDI message for each button. If you're using the dial, press the dial and change the action to activate current value. Then press the foot switch you want to use to activate this dial. Create a new binding and change the action to scroll. I assign this to the long press on the same foot switch. Just make sure your foot controller is capable of sending different MIDI messages for normal press and a long press. I have a reset button that returns everything back to the original state, ready for the next song and loop. If you have a reset button, you can add the following actions to your existing button. Otherwise, you can add them to a new widget. Add a unmute action for either your PD send bus or your drum sampler, depending on your setup. Add a trigger widget action and target the volume slider we created to control the hat sample. Change the action to double tap. This should return the volume to the default that we set earlier. If you chose to use the dial for the fill actions, create a trigger widget action and target the dial. Make sure the action is set to select fill. You can download the Loopy Pro templates I've used. The link is in the description below. Just note that you may need to retarget some of the MIDI destinations and clip targets for it to work properly. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know your thoughts and any suggestions. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.